Joining us. This is Jeff Louie with QliqSOFT. Today's goal is to really talk about our new product enhancements with our virtual visit platform, which many of our customers are using to this day. Throughout this presentation, if you have any questions at all, please just send me an email at jeff.louie@QliqSOFT.com. You can also reach out to your customer success manager. The agenda, a couple items on that. One is what the provider agent view is. I'll show you what the enhancements are from a patient's perspective as well, and then some of the different options that we have and the admin tools to handle those options. Okay, so I'm set up here in my user. Provider Paul is his name, and you guys are mostly familiar, hopefully, with this screen of the profile from an agent's perspective. And I'm just going to click in the virtual conversations. The other thing, just to quickly show you, is what's on my right is actually my cell phone, so you can see the live interaction back and forth between it. But I'll go ahead and get started, and I've clicked into the virtual conversations tab on the left. And quickly, you'll notice a couple of changes. One is this invite sent box tab is now available. We have something called the waiting room. So we're introducing this waiting room concept. Everything else at this point in time should look the same and look familiar. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start a conversation and so show you some of the enhancements that we've done as well. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to look for Julie, the patient. She doesn't exist, so I'm going to use something called Create New. And at this point, I have a couple of options. Now, we have picked up some customers that are outside the United States, and so by default, the United States should be picked, and that's the only option I have. But if I was one of those fortunate customers that was doing business overseas, then you would actually be able to drop down and select which country you want to communicate with. We still have the capability of from mobile and email, so just depending upon how you're going to communicate is the way that you fill it out, and then I'm just going to create a new patient. This all remains the same, which this text field is sticky, and I'm going to say start a conversation. When I start a conversation, you see down here in the bottom left that there's an invite sent. And then you'll see I've received a couple of text messages on my cell phone, but I'm not going to click on them yet because I want to show you this new feature that we've developed, and it's in this invite sent section. And some of the nice things about this is that it shows me the phone number that I've sent to Julie, the patient. The other thing I can do is, let's say I found something that maybe an error, or I've sent an invite to a patient and I've waited 2 or 3 minutes and this invite hasn't been clicked on yet. I can actually click on it to resend. Once again, the text subject field comes up with what I sent previous, but if I needed to alter this, I could click on the pencil, change it, mobile, email, update the patient. I can do all those things. And then I'm going to go ahead and just click resend invitation. And then you'll see a text message come across. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on those text messages. So these are the 2 text messages that came across, both with the hyperlink for the patient to come into. So I, as a patient, have just clicked on the hyperlink, and now I'm connected, Provider Paul, to Julie, the patient. And so we're very familiar with this. And so at this point, this kind of goes back to what our current version of our platform is. But at this point, I want to do is go ahead and click in the camera button up here in the upper right-hand corner to launch. And you'll start seeing some changes. I'm going to go ahead and mute it just so that we're muted. But you can see Julie, my patient, here, and then here I am. So, hello. Couple of things. Right away, we'll just do a quick overview of the orientation here. Julie, the patient. This is who I'm connected with. In the upper left-hand corner, gives me the patient's name. The right-hand corner has this little question mark idea, and I'll get to that here in a moment. And then we'll start at the bottom left. Bottom left, these are color coordinated. So green is active. So when I click on that, microphone becomes active. If I click on this camera, I'll actually pause my camera feed and stop my camera feed for the patient side. And then I can reinitiate it and the camera feed comes back. This is how I hang up the call, this red telephone hang up icon. If I was adding multiple people, I still click on the icon, similar to what we were doing before, so really no changes. And then this is just a testing mechanism. So if I wanted to test my video or microphone, I could do that here. Other really cool concepts is we can now communicate back and forth. And what I mean by that is I mentioned this little question mark up here in the upper right-hand corner. You can see it from the provider standpoint. You can also see it from the patient standpoint. And so a patient can click on this and just simply say, hey, I'm unable to hear. And then you can see I come across and, I can try to troubleshoot this with this patient. So in this particular case, I may say, and then send a message across. And it's pretty cool, right? So we can see that provider Paul has just sent over a message, have you adjusted your volume? And that's really just kind of give some information to a patient while still in the live active video feed. At this point, what I'm going to do is go ahead and close out of this conversation. And when I do that, the first thing it does is it opens up this banner up at the top. Mark this conversation is closed. And so this is also a new enhancement that we've done. And so this should help with the flow of the communication. So in this particular case, I'm just going to say yes. I'm going to close out, and then the chat has been closed out. Next thing I'm going to do is show you the behind the scenes and this option of the waiting room. I'll get this activated, I'll show it to you, and then we'll walk it through with telemedicine with this waiting room concept and what this feature gives us an advantage to do. So I want to talk about the option that we had, which was the waiting room. And if you noticed in the first segment, when I clicked on start a conversation, that it bypassed the waiting room. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce that concept of what a waiting room is, and then how can we create that and see what it looks like from a patient provider side so that we can understand the concept a little bit better. First thing it's going to do is actually start utilizing our chatbot technology. And so this is something that your customer success managers will help you build and deploy if you need any help, if you're not currently using these today with us. But so in the chatbot screen here, I have what is basically my design. And I'm going to click on this design, and it's going to be 100% customized to my particular need. But the idea behind this is that I can interact with my patient to find out who they are. We have a mechanism in here that we actually can test equipment for that patient, and then we can now connect them with the provider. And so that's the concept. And the way that we put this into action is I go to my chat widget, I find my chat widget, and then I go to something called conversation rules. And so I'm going to click on conversation rules, and then under routing rules for bots, I'm going to select that one. So what this basically means is that when this patient comes into the waiting room, we're going to launch this particular chatbot for that patient to complete. So let me show you what that looks like, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we're back to this screen, and we've just activated the waiting room feature. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and work on sending a new invite, and this particular one we'll call it 6 Sarah, and create a new one. Type in the phone number, and then create a new patient. So we'll see a text message come across as soon as I hit start conversation. So I've received them, and then I'm gonna go ahead and click in them. And let's see what happens with this invite sent. As soon as I click in the URL, it's now come into the waiting room. And so we'll actually see this chatbot interact. And so let's go ahead and fill this out. 6 Sarah. Okay. The next thing it's going to ask is to test the equipment. And as I mentioned before, everything written here is 100% customizable. And so I'm going to click test my equipment. And what this is going to allow us to do is actually to test the camera and microphone, which is going to become very important. So we'll click test camera. We can see ourselves. Yes. Test the speaker. I heard that. And then test the microphone. Hello. So it works. One thing you can notice is that it gives me some information here about what type of device the user is using. So user is going to submit it. And then once it submits it, it now goes into the waiting room. So as a provider, as provider Paul, I'm going to click in the waiting room. And now I can click on 6 Sarah. I can identify who it is that she is. Some of our customers actually like to put date of birth in here as another identifying characteristic. We can certainly do that. But part of the goal is A, confirm that this patient's here and who they are. The other thing is to actually verify, is their equipment prepared and ready for the video visit? And so once I get the green checkbox, I understand that her phone's going to work for the video call. So at this point, I have the option of doing one of two things. I could take over from the button up here in the upper right-hand corner, or I could click start. Either one does the same thing, which ultimately allows me to now have this connection. And then from here, we could certainly launch the video and then do our televisit. So I'll launch the video. And I muted everything. So there you have it. I'll go ahead and close out of this. And then mark this conversation as closed. At this point, I'm going to stop showing the enhancements because really the idea was to kind of introduce the waiting room, introduce the invite sent, introduce the ability to resend, and then some of the ways that our video feed looks with the color coordination of the different icons and how you communicate back to the patient while you're in a video chat, as well as having the patient share some information back to you as well. As I mentioned before, if you have any questions about our virtual visit platform, about what I showed you, or about other things, please send me an email, jeff.louie@QliqSOFT.com. I'm more than happy to feed those questions, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Once again, thank you for your business, and have a wonderful day.